Om Namah Shivaya. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So we conclude this verse, which, as you know, went with Yate Rudra Shiva Tanu Aghora Apapa Kashini. I'm breaking Sindhi, so it's not exactly Shiva Tanuhu Aghora. So it becomes Tanu Raghora, but if you break the Sandhi, it becomes Yate Rudra Shiva Tanuhu. This is on page 28 of Swami Dayanandaji's book, or you can just use the notes. Aghora Apapa Kashini Taya Naha Tanuva Shantamaya Girishanta Abhichakashihi. So we are now concluding this verse, and so it says that please reveal, Abhichakashihi means, please unfold for me your blessing-laden body. In other words, let me see your Aghora Rupa. And so this one is capable of not only giving me worldly joy, which is, of course, the different kind of ananda, pratibimbananda. So the joy of eating and having breakfast and all those kinds of things, and even the vasanananda, which is, of course, unevent-driven ananda, just the relative peaceful one, which also comes from Rudra. This is what it says. Rudra means your own self. And so, please reveal that to me. And here it says, Girishanta. So Girishanta here means, or you can, it says Shantama. Girishanta, of course, is the Sambodhanam. It is addressing the Rudra. But Shantama here means Brahmananda. Not Vishayananda, not Pratibimbananda, not Vasanananda, but give me the reality that I am, in fact, the Swarupa of Ananda. So this is the prayer which we went through in several classes, ending with the analysis of Ananda. And once this is done, then as a Swarupa, when it is revealed the Swarupa, then the ball game is over. Then there is no other begging on my part. Once I completely understand what my assets are. Right now I have my doubts because the assets seem to be sort of like available. I didn't even know who was giving me the assets, but now I know who is giving me the assets. And even though I don't quite, have not internalized it, let me chew on it and let me become accustomed to knowing this. Swami Dayananda used to say that, you have this example of this Australian ant that gave $500 million all of a sudden. So he said, what will happen is, for a while, the attitude of a very poor man, a beggarly person, will continue. He's going to be very careful about the money. He doesn't need to be careful about the money. He can just flaunt it now, just do whatever he wants to. Unconditionally independent and so on. But that state of owning up the assets will take a little while. And this is the whole process that we are going through. A lot of people have these doubts. Does this knowledge come suddenly? Or does it take a while? And what is this, realized soul? All these questions come up. So I think that has to be really studied very carefully. And it just means that it has to be understood exactly what it is. Swami Maheshanji had given an example, a very interesting example. He says that suppose you go to, it was not from this book, it is from other book that I have studied. Very beautiful example. He said, suppose you go outside somewhere to an unknown place. Let's say you were staying in a hotel to give a talk. Let's just take that as an example. So somebody received you at the airport and your talk starts the next day and you are staying in this hotel outside in the suburban area somewhere. And so the person who received you and took you into the room, this is nighttime, so that's important, it's at nighttime. And everything is dark outside. So, and then the person leaves, so you're unpacking and you're kind of looking around to say, where am I? Where's this hotel? Before you go to sleep, you're examining. So natural question comes in, am I in part of a forest area? Or am I in an urban area? And you have no idea because, when the person was driving, you were just talking to him. I'm just making all these things up. The main thing is when you look out, you have no idea what the landscape looks like. You have ignorance, the darkness of ignorance. All of a sudden, when you are looking out, there is a streak of lightning. And the streak of lightning, which happens so quickly, it's kind of like the milliseconds, but very bright. So when you happen to be looking out, it reveals what the landscape is. Instantly. And the lightning sometimes just flashes back and forth. So it was long enough for you to ascertain what the background looks like. And what you see is really like a forest area like this one. There's no houses, there's no roads, there's no people there. It's really on the outskirts of a forest-like area. This is what you determine. And then the lighting is over. It becomes dark again. Now, tell me, do you have continued experience of the forest? No. Do you have the knowledge of what the forest really looks like? Yes. You can tell someone if you're talking on the phone to your home and somebody says, where are you staying? What does the area look like? You can say, I'm in the middle of a forest area, it's beautiful. Tomorrow morning, I hope to explore it. This is the example. The same thing happens when you listen to Atma Vidya from someone. What is hopeful is that you get a glimpse of it. You get a clear glimpse of it. And the clear glimpse comes from examples, from the effectiveness of the teaching, from a guru that seems to know what he or she is talking about. But if that happens, you, like a lightning, you just get a little glimpse of it. And then your mind closes in on it. So you don't have the experience. You may have a quick experience, if you want to call it an experience. How can you have an experience of yourself? You're already there. But the experiences means an accurate assessment of who you are. That you get right away. But to own it, to make it into a sustainable experience takes a while. Because now the darkness of the outside has now closed in. The lightning is gone. You can't see it. You have to wait for a steady sunlight to come, where you can explore what the forest looks like. That will take a while. But at least the introduction to the reality of it is done right away. So to answer the question, is it happens suddenly or slowly? Both. Both. It happens suddenly, and it cannot happen slowly unless it happens suddenly. So it's important that you get a glimpse of who you are. And through meditation and teaching and this, that, or the other, what we're hoping for is that you do get a glimpse of this. And once you do, then it is a matter of convincing yourself, exactly like this $500 million story. That news is given to you right away by this lawyer who has traveled all the way from Australia looking for, what was the name I used, John Atkinson or something. And he found it. That was his job. He gets paid for it very nicely. And he delivered the news to you. And in fact, he put the bank account connection to you, so you can now do it. But is your attitude and your experience change right away? No. Because you have spent 65 years of your age being a struggling person. And now you are homeless. You had no one, no support or any kind. And so the money in your account is going to flow into your character and your attitude, the absorption into you slowly. Slowly by slowly you will say, really? Instead of spending $20, you might get $500. And you need to have supporting friends who are not after your money, but they will say, why don't you buy a small home for yourself? He says, no, home, I mean, that's, in California is, average is $1 million. No, I cannot buy a home. He says, you have 500 million. Just get a home for yourself. And buy a car, by the way. And so slowly the supporting cast of Swamis and myself, Vijay Kapoor, and all of these will have to convince you. It's okay. Just try to be yourself. And you are not there. You say, well, no, I don't know if I can buy $1 million home. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. You have it. You have it. Be generous. If somebody comes to you and asks for a donation, give it to them because you have it. And so this whole process is the slow process. So the answer to that is that it's both quick and as well as slow. So this is what the verse number 3 is. And so the verse 3 is when you say Abhichakashihi, means, hey Rudra, can you please reveal the fact to me that I have $500 million? I request you to do so, please, because that's what it says. And so I'll close with this quotation from Bhagavad Gita, chapter 6, verse number 22, which is quoted by Swamiji in the support of this. So, chapter 6, verse number 22 says, Yam labdhva chaparam labham manyate nadikam tataha yasmin stito na dukhyate dukkhena gurunapi vichalyate. So he says, once you understand what you have, yam labdva na aparam labham manyate. Once you understand that you are the very swarupa of Ananda, and there is no better Ananda than that, because it is the very swarupa. Everything else is a copy of it. How can you have a copy which is better than the original? Na adhikam tataha. There is nothing better than this. Yasmin sthitaha, sthita prajnaha. From when you are now fully established, na dukkhena guruna api vichalyate. No matter what the problems are, they are very minor. You have already achieved the ultimate. So this is what is called Shantama. And if you have some stock market losses or someone close to you dies or something like that, none of those dukkha can move you. That's it, you've achieved everything that you wanted to do. So with that, we close this mantra. Okay, let's go to the next mantra. The next mantra, which is 4 in Swami Dayanandaji's book and 3 in Swami Maheshanandaji's book. This is on page 32 of Swami Dayanandaji's book, and I think 16. I'll come to that in a minute. It goes, Yamishan girishanta haste bibharshastave shivan giritratan kurumagumsi purushan jagat. This is the one that we are now going to take. This is on page 32 of Swami Dayanandaji's book. This is mantra number 4. Yamishun girishanta haste bibharshastave shivan giritra tam kuru ma gumsi purushan jagat. So let's look at the word meaning from Swami Dayanandaji's book. Very nicely done. Excellent. So he had a disciple who was our classmate, me and my classmate in the PRC course. Then she became a sannyasin. Her name is Swamini Pramananda. So Swami Pramananda actually assisted Swamiji in writing this book and did a marvelous job of researching all of the Sanskritam for it and so on. So let's just look at the word meaning first before we go into the whole thing. Yam Ishum. So by the way, this is the verse which directly talks about the arrow, the Ishum. Swami Maheshanandaji talks about this. And again, as we have done before, there are 2 views of this. So one view is the Adi Daivika view as an external arrow, and that's how the description is adopted by Swami Dayanandaji. Again, Swami Maheshanandaji, even more so than before, takes a completely Adhyatmika view is, I am the arrow. Please hold me in your hand and shape me so that I am able to reach my goal. So we'll go into that in a little bit more detail. But let's look at the word meaning. Yam Ishum Tam Kuru Shivam Kuru. So if I can just change the Anvaya. He Girishanta, He Giritra. So there are 2 words used to address. He Girishanta, He Giritra, Yam Ishum haste bibharshi astave. So, bibharshi means to hold. Okay, so I don't know all the how it comes about it. So it comes from bhr, I think, to fill, to be holding. So bibharshasi. So vibharshi means the one that you are holding for throwing, the one you are getting ready to throw. Astave. Astave means to throw. So yam ishun he girishanta he giritra yam ishum haste bibharshi astave tam shivam kuru. Make that arrow full of blessings. Make me full of blessings. Because the blessing of the Shiva is always with you. It's not as though the Shiva is partial and he says, no, I'm not going to bless you yet. He's always with you. What's being held is that I am not full of blessing. I'm not capable, I'm not an adhikari for blessing. I only see, though again the same thing really just permeate. If you can at least see the overall sense of all this, then I'd be very happy. The sense is, as long as I ignore you, He Ishvara, I pretend you are not there, and I'm only looking at small things here and there, I'm going to run into problems. I know that. And once I discover who you are, that you are the Aghora Rupa, then I become Shivam. Until then I become Ashivaha. Here Swami will come up with some very nice examples of this that Swami Maheshananji will give. What is Shivam and what is Ashivam? So here is, again, just to the word meaning, we'll finish it all. So, do not hesitate to shape me the one that is a Shivam issue. So make sure that the arrow that you're holding, which is me, make sure that you really make it capable of becoming blessing-full. And with that, please don't hurt me. Okay? If you can possibly shape me without hurting me, that will be wonderful. Which means that if you have to hurt me, if you have to provide some kind of a surgery on my body, if you have to do that, do that. I understand that. Please heal me very quickly. It's kind of like, supposing you broke your ankle, you fell down and you broke your ankle. We have a friend, a brother of a friend. We have a close friend, and then our brother, who lives in the area. So he was on crutches. So we asked him, what happened? He said, oh no, you're not going to believe this. And this has happened twice to him, same person. He goes in for walking his dog. And he's just, when you're walking the dog, you're also thinking at your cell phone and you're just sort of... The dog saw another dog. These dogs are very crazy people, I tell you. It's very interesting. I have no idea what happens. They are sitting quietly and so on. As soon as they see another dog, something happens to them. I need to research, honestly, because I've seen this so often. So this fellow darted out and he fell down and broke his ankle. He was on crutches. This happened twice to him. Normally what you should do is get rid of the dog. Give it away. really speaking, a Vedant thing doesn't need any dogs and cats and so on and so forth. Honestly. This is all, but gosh, I cannot believe. I think there are more animals in California, dogs, than people. There is such a big industry. It's unbelievable. There is a stock called Chewy. And all that does is, it's big business. Nice food for the dogs. Anyway, I'm going to go on that. Let me go on to this. So, what happens is that you are on crutches. You're on crutches. And so now, the only thing that happens is that you get better crutches. Just like these walkers, you have these walkers, and so there are better walkers. My mother-in-law, she has to have some walker help here and there. So the other day we were visiting a friend, and she came down with breast cancer, and poor thing, and there's a lot of stuff going on. But now she's using a walker. And my mother-in-law saw that walker is much more superior. It's not much more, it's superior. So she asked, where did you get this from? So my friend said, oh yeah, you can just go to this shop. And we haven't done anything. I think we have to really see if we can get a better walker for her. It's very light and very so on and so forth. So the prayer is, oh Lord, give me better crutches. But the real prayer is, please heal me quickly so I don't need crutches. In the meantime, you have crutches. But in the eventual, I want to do is really be crutchless. And the reason I'm bringing it up, almost like out of sequence, because I just had these two. If you look at Swami Maheshananji's commentary on this verse, on this mantra rather, so it's on page 19. And this is in Hindi 19, it's difficult to, this 9 and 1 and it's difficult to see. But on page 19 you will see this, Yamishun Hyaste. So in that commentary, he comments on, because everything is from an Adhyatmika viewpoint, Purusham Jagat. See? So look at this, look at the two views. Swami Dayanand's view is that Purusha means me, and Jagat means the world outside, right? And that's the normal way to look at it and so on, and it's not wrong. Maheshananji says, Purusha means the final getting rid of the crutches. Don't really hesitate to remove the need of crutches. But Jagat here means, so look at this. Purusha means aghora rupaha. And Jagat means ghora rupaha. So he says that even if you were to give me, if I know that I'm going to see the aghora rupaha for a while, I'm going to see the ghora rupaha for a while, there also please don't afflict me very much. Make sure that in using the crutches, I don't fall down even more. And so please make sure that you protect me. So here, Swami Maheshananji, what he means to say is, it doesn't mean that you don't, and this is how this chamakam is, along with the ShriRudram, we do chamakam. Chamakam means worldly goods. Please give me this, give me this. It's not moksha. It's all worldly goods. So here this is exactly the same thing. So Mahamsi Purusham Jagata means continue to shower worldly goods to me until I reach moksha. And I think we've already talked about it, that I like it was described somewhere. And that was that the best way that Ishvara blesses you, you don't starve, but you don't get so many goods that you distracted. It's in the middle ground. Remember the bell-shaped curve that we talked about? So that's kind of like the essence of this. Okay, so that's just the last Purusham and Jagat. But now you get the sense of the whole thing. And there is some explanation of the Girishanta and Giritra. And so I won't spend a lot of time on it. Girishanta we have already done. You can go back to your previous notes. Giritra is a new word, but it means the one who protects the word spoken to you. You can look at it both ways. One who gives you protection by the words, or you can say it protects the word itself. So the first one would be, may you enable the words of the Guru to have their intended effect on me. The second version would be, may you protect the Guru and the teaching until I get it. May I stay healthy, and may the Guru also stay healthy long enough for me to complete my journey. So this is kind of like the sense of the Giritra. Okay, so that's what. Okay. So now, let's go into the detailed explanation. So far it was just the words, but now let's go into the detailed explanation of this mantra. So here, Swami Maheshananji again teaches through examples a lot. I think I really get a lot out of it when he can give an example which is indicative of what this mantra is saying. So he gives this example. And those of you who are good cooks in this room will appreciate it very well. Example he gives is making a halwa of moong dal. Moong dal halwa. Okay? Which, is so wonderful, so tasty. So in Rajasthan, I think they're called sira. And so he uses the word sira. I wasn't quite sure what sira means, so I actually looked it up, and it means halwa. It just means I don't know what the English would be. What's the English of halwa? I think so. Anyway, so we have a restaurant that we like a lot, and so he makes very good moong halwa. So this is a very favorite of our. So moong halwa is a very beautiful thing to see. So the whole example is that of making moong halwa. And Swamiji says that to achieve this sense of what we are talking about requires some effort. If you are an Uttama Adhikari like Ramana Maharshi, then it doesn't require any efforts. Because all the effort has been done in the previous life. But for all others, there is a lot of effort required, systematic effort also. So he gives this example of the moong halwa. He says moong halwa is a very, very tasty thing that everybody likes. But to achieve moong halwa, what do you need to do? So he comes up with several steps. Okay? The first step is to soak it. And so this is a moong which has chilka on it. It has the covering on it. Okay? So you soak it. And by the way, all of these things are very significant, really, at each part of it. So let's just look at it very in that manner. Let's not just say, oh, this is just halwa and so on and so forth. Swamiji would not give the examples unless it has some spiritual significance. So the first thing is, you soak it. What do you soak it in? Water. What does the water stand for? Karma. Water stands for karma. And so even when of course it stands for purified karma. It stands for purification. You clean things that way. But when Ganeshan does the havan in the morning, he sprinkles water at the place. What that indicates is, I am dedicated to doing what needs to be done. So apaha is indicative of karma. So karma here means, interesting, you have to see what the value of karma is. Again, going back to praptasya praptihi natu apraptasya praptihi. As you know, so it'd be good to revise that whole concept. So there are two kinds of praptihi. There are two kinds of acquisition of the goal. If the goal is away from you, then karma is primary and jnanam is secondary. So if you wanted to go to Philadelphia from here, then you need to know which direction to go to Philadelphia. But just by knowing which direction to go, you don't get there. There's a lot of stuff you have to do. You have to decide car, you have to make sure that there's enough gas, you have to get instructions from somebody, which freeway, all those kinds of things you have to do. So there's a lot of karma involved, and there the karma is primary and the knowledge is secondary. If it is praptasya praptihi, on the other hand, something that you already have, but for some reason you've concluded is not there, there also you have to do karma, but that karma is a completely different kind of karma. The main thing is jnanam, and the karma is secondary, isn't it? So I think some of my students are very familiar with this classical example that I've been giving for like 25 years, based on my own experience. So I was going to, I was leading a delegation of my own company people to Tokyo. And so I had a friend of mine who was an Indian person sitting next to me. And so we finished our flight, we were approaching Tokyo, and we were going to have a meeting next morning with the local people. And all of a sudden so we filled out the immigration forms, names, etc., passport number, you know all of that. And so we got out of the plane, we got our bags out, now we're waiting at the immigration line and just chatting away very nicely and so on. All of a sudden my friend said, "Oh my God." So I said, "What happened?" He says, "I've lost my passport." It really happened to me, I'm just telling you. And so I said, "Really? How? How did you?" I says, "Didn't you use your passport for filling out the immigration?" He says, "Yeah, that's true, I did. But maybe I just left it in. I think I may have left it in the plane." Now, once you come out of the plane, You cannot go back in. You can't say, by the way, I left a bag and so. You can't do that anymore. That's it. What you have to do is, you have to report it to United Airlines. They have to see which seat number, all kinds of problems and so on. And in the meantime, we have to go, check into the hotel and so on. But the interesting thing I still remember was, this gentleman, who at that time was around mid-40s, was quite a successful sales manager with the Hewlett-Packard. And he used to work with me, almost like work for me, but have an independent department. Very successful and, very confident and happy and so on and so forth. He broke down completely. He kept saying, my God, I'm so stupid. I keep doing these things. Why does it happen? I'm good for nothing. I felt very sorry for him. I said, no, it's okay. It's all right. We'll find it. It's okay. He says, no, this is terrible. Then something came into my mind. This is winter time, by the way. Winter time. He was wearing an REI jacket that had 18 pockets in it. So I don't know how it just occurred to me, because this has happened to me also. Some of these pockets are so tricky. They have an outer version and an inner version. And even though you put your hand into the pocket thinking there is something there is nothing, because there is a film on the other side. So I said to my friend, I said, can you do me a favor? Just raise your hands like this. What are you doing? And he is really angry and sorry and bad shape, honestly. I said, I don't know. Let me just explore. So he put his hands out. First pocket, nothing. Second pocket, nothing. I was also getting discouraged. Fourth or third pocket. And the interesting thing was, again, Swami Dayanand used to say this, and this was a confirmation. Do you know when he found the passport, he didn't say, oh, wonderful, this is so good. He had a silly smile on his face. I'm so sorry, I bothered you, this, that, or the other. So I think I may have told you this. We used to ask Swamiji, what is the feeling of a Brahmanista? He says, you feel sorry. I've bothered a lot of people. Anyway, back to this whole thing about the water being a symbol of karma. There needed to be some karma to find something that you already have. And some intelligence and so on. Because supposing just imagine, he has the passport, okay? He thinks he doesn't have it, okay? Now, what do we have to do? We are approaching the person who is looking at the immigration. You have to say, I think I left my passport somewhere. I don't know where it is. That guy is going to be very upset. Please set aside. There's a long line. Then he calls somebody and says, please take care of him. I don't know what happened. Now you have to talk to that person. You have to talk to United Airlines and possibly not find it. There is a meeting. Huge problems. So there is some intelligence required to do the karma of a Vedantin, which is praptasya praptihi. So karma is still important, but a different kind, until the praptasya prapti is discovered. Anyway, the first step in this whole process of making moong halwa is to soak it in water. That means you have to do appropriate karma. Appropriate karma. And here I would just make one point, okay? I won't belabor it, but it's an important point. We follow a certain sampradaya which has been handed to us from Sadashiva, Samarambham, Shankaracharya Madhyamam, Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. So there is a parampara that we have, sampradaya. Samyak pradati iti sampradaya. We follow this. You know what that sampradaya is? There is a temple in the ashram. This is not just going somewhere and doing bookish knowledge. I need Ishvara's continued help in the karma until I finish the job. This is the sampradaya. And if there is any Swami, and there are some Swamis, so this is what you have to see. If there is any Swami that tells you, don't do any prayers, you don't have to do anything. You just have to open the book and understand the meaning of it. This is not part of our sampradaya. This is not right. It is violating the very sampradaya of Adi Shankara. Why do you think he had all these 4 mathas done in India? Otherwise he could have said, just read my bhashya and just do it. Doesn't happen. You need the blessing of Ishvara continually. Karma is very important. Even though it is secondary, it is not primary. The main thing is study, but it has to be augmented with karma. There's a very interesting story that Swami Maheshananji pointed out, which takes so long that I'm not going to tell it. But maybe some other time I will do that. Where the Pandit, one was saying, you don't have to do all of this. This is just not necessary. And what happens to that person? Anyway, there's a long story. So here, the first thing in soaking the dal is the first step. Okay? Then the second step is removing the chilka. Removing the outer covering of the dal, moong dal. And that happens only when you soak it. You cannot do it without soaking. So the karma is important. But then the attitude starts to come in. The next step is you discard the unnecessary part. You go more inside. So the meaning of this is that at this point, not you personally, but we are so concerned with the outside things, so close, we are so involved in that we don't have the opportunity of exploring inside of what that is. We don't. And you cannot make the halwa without discarding the covering. You cannot discover what you are until you are willing to at least suspend and hopefully discard. And also here doesn't mean that you have to stop everything. It is really an internal attitude. What drives your thinking? This is what we are talking about here. No kind of a show of this, no, you know what, I cannot do this, I have to do this. You'll make a mess of things. So you have to just continue doing that to a certain extent. Although I must say, I'm sure my wife would tell you that I do physically discard outside things also. And then she would like to make sure that we have friends and we visit them, but I have to discipline myself. So I do deprive her of even the showy part of it. But really more than that is really the internal sannyas that you have to take. So this is the removing of the coverage. And and I think Swami Maheshanji points out that you have to be willing to give up. You haven't given it up, but you have to be willing to give up the ahankara, that this is what I am. I am a person who is very successful in life. I'm doing well. I'm a specialist in doing things. And this is my life. Fine, this is good. I'm very happy for you. But if then you don't aspire for something greater until you are willing to discard that part of it. If you want to continue leading a life, this is okay. Again, so the ahankara, the ego, there is a certain point of prarabdha karma. You have worked a lot up to get to that point. That's fine. You should continue with that. But don't keep holding on to it because you should be ready to discard it. You know, it's interesting. It's when I was, thanks to my wife, I was able to take early retirement because she was beginning to be the main earner. And I said, I think I'm going to take advantage of that. And so I think I quit at about, 58 or 59 or something like this. I got some very good deal from Hewlett Packard, 2 years worth of salary. So I just said, this is it. So I gave it up. So in terms of when I was retiring, I was starting to read some articles about, who is happy in retiring, who's not. And one of the things that pointed out is, if you are a big shot, you will have a hard time retiring. And if you are not a big shot, you'll have an easier time retiring. This is an interesting thing. So if people that have, they have a vice president and they have 500 people reporting to them and so on, it is very difficult to retire after that and feel good about yourself. Because the very next day your wife is going to tell you, or your husband or whoever, hey, wash the dishes. You haven't finished it, you said, it's a shock. Because before that, you left all the dishes, you went to the office, you were such a big shot, and your spouse was okay with it. All of a sudden. So, this is the thing, this is what is called ahankara. The ahankara means that you have a certain image about yourself. You have an identification that needs to be shed. That needs to be shed. So this is all part of this whole process of... I have 5 more minutes. Hopefully I can just finish this. Otherwise, I think one more class to go tomorrow. All right. So this is step number 2 of making dal halwa. Step number 3 is to grind it. To grind it. What that means, I'm just borrowing Swami Maheshanji's thoughts, really, honestly, that's all I'm doing. My job is very easy. If you find a good text and so on, just follow it. He says what grinding means is, you have many interests at this point. So many interests. And this especially happens. So by the way, this is the second advice that I got when I was retiring. This was from an article in the Wall Street Journal. I still remember this. This is like 22 years ago, 23 years ago. It's very fresh in my mind. What they said is, this is what happens to people who retire. They will say, oh, I am so free now. Now I have had so many interests. I want to learn how to play the piano. Okay, this is number 1. I've been dying to do gardening. I will be doing gardening also. And travel, I have not been able to travel. I have to go to Africa. This is very important to see all those animals moving from one end to the other. Pharaohs of Egypt I have not seen yet, so that's number 3. And they have the whole finger full of things that they are going to do. This article pointed out very nicely. Excuse me. The article said, if you're going to do that, you're going to be very unhappy. Let me tell you that. So they had interviewed a lot of people who had really retired, and they said, if you have 8 things that you want to do, you will be an unhappy person. Then what to do? You should not also get a non-profit job that takes you 10 hours a day. You'll be equally unhappy. Don't do that. The best thing is to find something which really attracts you as a focus for a limited time during the day. And the rest of the time you can do a couple of things if you want to. And when I read that article, I told Pammi, I said, I qualify. I'm going to quit. Because I already have a wonderful interest in Vedanta. Before that, I wasn't spending enough time after retiring. Now I'm spending more time teaching this or the other. But that takes me like 2-3 hours a day. That's it. It's not I'm stuck with it. It's not a job for me. I enjoy it. And then other things, I work out, I play with my granddaughters and do some accounting, this, that or the other. Those are not that important. I'm a happy retiree. So the grinding means so grinding means every moong dal piece is a separate one. You have to all put it together in a single one. That should be your focus. This is what grinding means. So that's the next step. And so Swamiji spends a lot of time talking about that. You can read it all in the book. Then comes the next step, which is very difficult. You have to cook the dal. Cook the dal means some of the difficulties that come in following this path, you must be able to stand it. And so again, all the Purusharthas, Shama, Dhamma, Uparama, Titiksha, Samadhanam, all those come in. Even Brihadaranyaka says, Shanto Dantaha Uparataha Titikshasu Samahitoho Bhutva Atmani Atmanam Pashyet. And there is some heat involved. There is some dukkha involved in giving up things. If you don't spend as much time on your not natural things, there is some dukkha involved. There is some heat involved. And you have to stand it. If you cannot stand it, then you're not going to cross this step. And so the discipline, the dedication, the giving up of some of the pleasant things in life, so-called pleasant things and all that, is important. And the mantra really allows you to do that. And so I'm reminded of a very interesting joke that I saw. And I don't know how it is not completely relevant to what they're doing, but anyway, I might as well just say that. So there was this guy who went to a person and said, Swamiji, give me a mantra that really helps me. I have a very difficult marriage. And my wife really just bothers me all the time and so on. I need a mantra to really, to see how I can do that. So he says, okay, I'll give you one mantra. And by the way, do not share it with anybody. He says, yeah, no, I won't share it to anybody. So he came home and he was doing this mantra, whatever it was. So when his wife was watching him doing this chanting, so he says, what are you doing? He said, I don't know, it's something, I can't talk about it. He says, you can't talk about it? In our marriage, do we have kept any secrets? What are you talking about? He says, no, but this is very different. Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya. He says, what are you doing? I can't believe this. And you're doing it more and more, and I just cannot. He says, I'm very, very sorry. I'm very sorry. He says, okay, I'll give you 10 minutes. If you don't tell me about the whole thing, I'm going to leave you. Is that clear? So he just said, all that. He didn't really pay any attention. So she packed her suitcases and left. So he called the Swami and he said, my gosh, that mantra works. You're right. You solved my problem. I couldn't resist to just telling you that. Anyway, so this is the final step of. Is it the final step? Yeah, this is the final step. And so what that means is that even to do the praptasya praptihi, there are some steps involved, there's some work involved. It's not something very, very straightforward. It shouldn't be, but it's indicative of where we are in our life. If you already deserve that, there is no work involved. Then it's already very obvious. But if you're not, then there is a certain amount of work involved to do so. Okay? Shuddhatma is not here. He was supposed to. Is he? Oh, okay, I'm waiting for you. I was going to start the next mantra. So with that, I close the class. Om Asato Ma Satgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritangamaya Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om.